Hello, everybody. Welcome again to the Soup of the Day podcast. I've got a new friend to Georgia. Tom Galban is the lead pastor at Evangel Community Church in Snellville. He comes to us by way of New Jersey district and has been in the district for a while. Tom is our newly ratified ethnic presbyter for the Georgia district, and I wanted you guys to, number one, to meet him, get to know him. But then also we're going to talk about some issues that are faced by our ethnic leaders in the Assemblies of God and ways that we can help improve. So Tom, say hello to the Georgia District and tell us a little bit about yourself.
What an honor to serve in this capacity and serve alongside you to kind of capture your vision to continue our march towards greater diversity in Georgia. So I am currently the lead pastor at Evangel Community Church in Snellville. But I grew up in a small Spanish storefront holiness Pentecostal church.
Come on.
In
Okay.
New York City. So we were in church about 4 days to 6 days out of the week. And I remember being a kid, we didn't have any children's church or anything like that. So my mom would bring us to church. All the other little kids had pillows on the floor during prayer nights and stuff. My mom said, no, you're going to pray. You're going to go to the altar.
Come on.
And so that's kind of the world that I was reared in, and served as a youth pastor in that small Pentecostal church. And had some difficult experiences with our lead pastor and had to make the transition outside of that space.
Okay.
But my mother-in-law, who recently got saved, had begun attending an Assemblies of God congregation in New Jersey. And I remember thinking to myself, how am I going to get ordained? My life is over now that I've transitioned over from this denomination to now this new world, because I was used to just the Spanish denomination, the Spanish world, and now I'm in this international / Anglo world, and it was different. How did the processes work here? And I remember that first day we walked into that church, Calvary Temple in Wayne, New Jersey.
Okay.
And
I know that church.
yeah, and I walked into that church, and they were giving flowers to the pastor and his wife and congratulating them because they had just been elected the sectional presbyters. And later come to find out that they were the ones who would oversee the credentialing process in New Jersey. So had a meeting with my pastor later on that week. He had been familiar with me and my ministry prior to that. And God just restored everything back to me.
Wow.
Which was absolutely incredible. And so we served in that church for a while, and but I was still really hurt from what I experienced. My pastor, without getting too much into it, my pastor suffered from addiction.
Okay.
And we had a rehab center in our Spanish Pentecostal church, and that we ran out of a parsonage that another church had.
Okay.
And he had taken the drugs that were being confiscated from the men there and was using them himself.
Oh, my
And
goodness.
he wouldn't hold himself to account. So
Wow.
I had suffered a lot, and I didn't realize the weight of all that. I'm in college at the same time, and I'm starting to work through, what is the faith that my parents taught me? How does that look like for me to grapple on to that faith, and what does that look like? And some of the things that were held dear in the Spanish holiness Pentecostal side weren't so much of the things that I experienced when I went to an Assemblies of God church. And so I was trying to figure out what that looked like, and so I left to the military.
Okay.
And kind of experienced a crisis of faith.
What year did you enter the military?
So I was in the military in 2000 and I believe 8.
Okay.
And so I served there for a while, and I could remember being at our training, our BOLIC, our Basic Officer Leadership Course training, and I just remember my life was in shambles, and it was the struggle of wanting to love the Lord, wanting to have a relationship with the Lord, and yet struggling through this trauma and this pain. And so my wife was instrumental. She was my fiance at the time. My wife was greatly instrumental in restoring me kind of back, and bringing me back to life, so to speak, in my faith. And I'll never forget just being on the bedroom floor in my dormitory in Bolick. And at the time we had CDs, DVDs that we used to kind of give out in church. That was the thing.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember seeing the whole worship service. I just remember being in tears as the worship team sang, "Father, will you come and open up our eyes?" And that was a renewal. I think A.B. Simpson, theologian, founder of the Christian Missionary Alliance, speaks about all of us going through a crisis of faith at some point that kind of yields a spiritual renewal in our lives. And that was mine. I came back, and my pastor said, "Hey, there's a church that the district's going to close, and we want to see if you'd, be a right fit for it." And so I had the opportunity to interview for that church, all 7 members of that church.
All seven.
Wow. To interview for that church. And they weren't going to select me. I was too young for them to be their pastor. And so they were going to go with somebody else. And I guess somewhere along the interview process, that guy found out what he was going to get paid. So a whole $100 a week. So
that'll put you over the top,
yeah,
won't it?
Yeah, he was really excited to take it.
Oh, boy.
So
Wow.
Last second, the Sunday of the vote, he removed himself from consideration. And I don't think the church had any alternative but
Certainly.
but to have me in as their pastor. We pastored that church for 12 years.
Wow.
Yeah. And that church grew to a little over 250 in Sunday morning attendance.
Wait, hold on. You went from 7 to 250.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Wow.
It was an incredible journey. Actually, and I know that we're doing this as a district. I just want to encourage our pastors to really take advantage of this opportunity. One of the catalysts for our growth was the Acts 2 journey.
Yeah.
So we were able to do that as a church, understand our vision, our mission, our core values, set some processes
Certainly.
up. And one of the things that we did is we actually looked at the building and everything that was around us, and we wanted it to communicate something. So we had our discipleship path. We had our next steps all throughout the building, directional signs all throughout the building, in addition to the processes. And we did this largely through raising up and developing key leaders and volunteers in the church. So there wasn't a whole lot of paid staff that was there, but it was just an incredible journey to pastor that church.
Wow.
And it was difficult for me to leave that congregation. In some ways, it was like a first love, so to
Certainly,
speak.
of course.
And
well, you're a shepherd. You have a shepherd's heart.
yeah,
for the people.
and it wasn't only that. My theology that I kind of had surrounding that, didn't let me step out of that space, so to speak. I felt connected with that, and if I didn't hear an audible voice from God, that somehow I wasn't clear to move on. But I kind of felt that detaching
Certainly.
start to take place. I remember speaking to an older pastor in our district, and he said, "Tom, the anointing isn't in the place. The anointing is on you and on your life, and you're going to take that anointing with you wherever you go." And so that was a powerful and impacting moment.
You found that liberating.
I did.
Yeah.
I did. And but I held on a little bit because we were right in the middle of COVID and everything that was going on. COVID had just begun.
Yeah.
And so I decided, hey, I'm going to put a pause on this, but I'm going to do some things to kind of help train myself for whatever is to come, whatever trauma people are going to suffer after this is through with. And so I went back to train at the hospital with clinical pastoral education, just it's kind of a trauma-based training and dealing with death and loss of life, and so the hospital kind of gives you the best setting for that. And kind of somewhere along that line, God used my CPE, my clinical pastoral educator, to help guide me. And the opportunity came up to come here to Georgia. And
welcome.
Yeah. So excited to have been here. Congregation was an absolute perfect fit. I remember the first time that I met with the search committee, and I went and I told my wife, I said, I don't know what it is. I just feel this magnetic attraction to this place, and I think that this is going to happen. And my wife has always been a beautiful pessimist, right? When it comes to these things, she is my grounding voice, right, so to speak. And she's like, sure, no problem. And so she didn't, kind of buy that was going to be what happened. And but sure enough, came down here, was elected to the church, and things have been growing well. It's a wonderful, beautifully diverse congregation.
They love you. So
I love them.
in my interactions with them, because I was there for that business meeting where you were elected, and they were just enamored with you guys. And then having gone back and just kind of interacted with people there, they have a real deep love for you and appreciation for you, and I'm glad to hear that you also love them as well. But you guys are doing a great job, and I did notice that your congregation is diverse. Yeah. So
we have people from all over the world, Africa and Europe and Asia. We have somebody in our church who's a Holocaust survivor. Which is absolutely incredible. So getting an opportunity to just sit down with her and talk with her. And we just have so many different experiences across all different ethnic backgrounds in the church. And I just feel perfectly situated to be there. So really excited to, kind of have reached this moment where I have the opportunity to share my experiences and also help minister broadly to now our ethnic pastors and our ethnic congregations. This is something that's really near and dear to my heart. I really believe in church revitalization, church multiplication, church planting. Those are something that I think are an integral part of, my DNA. My great-grandmother was a church planter and missionary in Pentecostal holiness denominations, Hispanic. And so we have a long, rich history of serving pastors and leaders and churches, and I just kind of look forward to.
Where was she a missionary?
So she was a missionary all throughout South America, and Central America. So Guatemala, Nicaragua, El Salvador. There were many churches that she planted throughout that.
Area. What a heritage! Yeah. What a legacy! Yeah. And that's incredible. So in your story, we were kind of unpacking that. You're second generation, American, and you have some unique experiences. And one of the things that we want on our presbytery, because the Assemblies of God historically has been primarily Anglo, and we haven't always done well with the diversity in our churches. I remember being raised in an Assemblies of God church in Georgia that was almost singularly Anglo. And so it wasn't something that we really even thought a lot about. And our former superintendent, Rick Collins, was the leader who was serving at the time where we introduced this position of an ethnic representative on our presbytery, because we need diversities of viewpoints and experiences. So your experience in growing up in America is way different than mine. Yeah. And growing up in the church is way different than mine. And so we need that perspective, because we can sometimes put on, blinders. Unintentionally or intentionally, we put on blinders. And so that diversity of experiences in growing up and perspectives is absolutely essential to us as we lead our movement in Georgia, as we try to capture church planting, and the creativity behind church planting. What communities do we plant in? How do we do that? And so in order to accomplish the task of evangelizing our state, we've got to welcome people to the table with diverse experiences. And that's why I'm so happy to have you. And I will say this, Tom, when I met you, when we talked, when we sort of unpacked your experiences, I felt a resonating voice in me that we need to have you at the table of leadership, that we need to have you because of not only your uniqueness, but then also your leadership capacity and your giftings. I mean, you're military, you're church revitalizer, so you also have the practical experiences in addition to the unique perspectives of being a member of an primarily Anglo district, but from an ethnic diverse background. And so I'm thrilled to have you and to welcome you to our presbytery and the uniqueness that you're going to bring to the conversations that we're having. I gave you a list of things that I would like to see you accomplish in this season, and one of those things is really just being a spokesperson, a voice for our ethnic diversity with our ministers. And we have African congregations, we have Romanian congregations, we have Indian congregations, so we have Hispanic congregations, and so we do have a diverse community of leaders. But we want to engage even more, and I understand that I want our district to look like heaven, and heaven is going to have an incredibly diverse population.
Yes.
And so we want to have that. And I know that we talked about some things that we want to unpack, and one of those is the necessity for diversity in leadership.
Yeah, absolutely. And so thank you for the privilege that you have given me to be able to serve in this capacity. No, I agree. There needs to be representation and leadership opportunities throughout our district and throughout the Assemblies of God, because that diversity of voice helps make us better as a church, and we need our ethnic churches, we need our ethnic pastors to engage broadly with our district, to have conversations, to be at our district councils, to be at our ministers' retreats, to send their students to youth camp, to send their students to kids camp, and to engage with other people from other backgrounds, right? This is part of what makes the Assemblies of God such an incredibly rich denomination or cooperative fellowship. Sorry, denomination.
Exactly.
That's a bad word.
If Doug Clay is watching, we are a cooperative fellowship. No,
but we need that, and I think broadly the Assemblies has kind of captured that, because so much of our constituency is outside of the United States.
Yes,
and that
it
adds
is.
value. And some of those investments that we've made in those ethnic communities and in planting those churches in other nations are now giving fruit, because they're sending out missionaries from their nation to reach the world. Sometimes they're sending missionaries into our cities.
Yes, they are.
To reach their own ethnic community in our city. So in so many ways, the fruits of sowing these seeds will just multiply back to us. And some of our, and it's not just in a diversity of view, some of our ethnic pastors are highly qualified individuals. Just speaking with somebody in our district, this week, one of our Hispanic pastors, and he is a certified counselor, therapist, and so these folks not just come with a diversity of viewpoint, they also come with qualification, and they come with a deep commitment to our Pentecostal heritage. And I know that is so important to us, not just that we are moving forward and reaching people, but that we're not losing our Pentecostal distinctives.
Which, let me add, that for denominations or cooperative fellowships who are at our age, I think we're at 108, 109 years old at this point, as a fellowship, as a movement, there is that tendency to lose the defining characteristics that were part of the early movement.
Absolutely.
And so it's not that we intentionally gravitate away from them, but that sometimes just time and in the varying stylistic leanings of our churches, we begin to lose a little bit of that Pentecostal distinctive. And I want to say that I love that. I am Pentecostal. I was raised in a Pentecostal Assemblies of God church, and we can never get away from that. If we do, if we get away from that, if we become so cosmopolitan and urbane that we get away from our Pentecostal heritage, we may wind up suffering the same outcome as other movements, denominations, however you want to characterize them, that started out with particular dynamics, but as time kind of continued on, they suffered some of those age-related issues, and they got away from what made them great to begin with.
Absolutely, and I agree with that. I think you're going to start seeing, I think amongst our younger pastors, amongst our ethnic pastors, throughout all of our fellowship, one of the things that I'm really kind of seeing is that an embrace of those Pentecostal distinctives. I think we're realizing that we become too seeker-friendly, have tried to fit in too much into the evangelical mold, lost those Pentecostal distinctives, and with that, lost that spirit empowerment to see those baptisms, to see those people saved in our churches, see those people baptized in the Holy Spirit in our churches. And so I think you're seeing a lot more pastors that are willing to speak to these issues because we do not want to lose this.
No, we don't.
This is part of what makes our movement great and what has made it so attractional to so many people is this is not just a place that you can hear about God, but it's a place where you can experience God.
Oh, you're preaching now. So, and it's not an either or, it's a both and.
Yeah.
So you can be appealing to your community with your stylistic leanings,
Of course.
and you can be appealing to young families with children without losing our Pentecostal distinctive. So it's not an either or; it can be a both and.
Absolutely.
Because I believe this. Now I'm 55, but I was a youth director for the state for many years, and I worked with young leaders, and I continue to work with young leaders. There is a desire in that generation, the Z's, to see an authentic Pentecostal expression in our congregations. And a few years ago, there's a European theologian. His name is, I believe his last name was Kiltenberger. Was asked. He specialized in Pentecostals. He wasn't Pentecostal, but as a theologian, he was enamored with Pentecostal denominations and movements. And he was asked the question, what does the Assemblies of God in the West, talking about in the U.S., what does the AG in the West need to do to recapture their momentum?
Mm-hmm.
And this is what he said. Now, this is a non-AG, non-Pentecostal guy. Says, oh, that's easy. Just do what made you great to begin with.
It's good. That is so good.
Just do what made you great. So that pioneering spirit in the early days of the Assemblies of God, 1914 on the 20s, the 30s, the 40s, the 50s, that really brought forth this growth aspect. It was that pioneering spirit that was empowered by our Pentecostal distinctive. And man, I would love to see in numerous ways that reemerge or continue to as it is, because we've got a lot of churches who are doing great things, and that haven't gotten away from that. But I enjoy seeing that and hearing that from you as an ethnic leader that there is that heart there to see that come to fruition.
It is. There's an absolute heart to see that happen, and so I think that we just have our ethnic pastors add value at all those different levels, not just on the presbytery, sectional eldership, and other leadership opportunities, Pastor, that you might have in your congregation to entrust to our ethnic ministers and credential holders.
So for me as a superintendent, and I want to learn from you, okay? I did live in a foreign context, 9 years in the Middle East. So I was the Anglo in the middle of a Palestinian community, and so I felt just a small part of what it meant to be different in a local context.
Sure.
So, but for you as an ethnic leader, speaking to me as a superintendent, what can we do? I say we, the Georgia District, but me specifically, to help engage those leaders out there that are a part of our fellowship, but to be honest, they don't in ways seem to be engaged, and it may be a myriad of different reasons. But what can you feel that I can do as a leader to encourage that?
So, I think that this is important, and this is partly in my role, as well as to help bridge that gap.
Yes.
To go to where they are. Because in a lot of instances, might not be either the financial ability or the time ability to come to our district events. Many of our ethnic pastors are co-vocational, bivocational. They're working outside of their churches as well to make ends meet. And so kind of meeting them, I think, where they are and engaging in a conversation, and that serves as a bridge to kind of open up that communication that I think will foster them eventually making their way into our district events.
So it is built on relationships.
It is. It absolutely is. There is nothing more important in ethnic communities than personal relationships.
Okay, so let me stop you, and I just want to talk to our pastors and staff that are watching. And I'm hearing what he's saying, that personal equity, relational equity is solid gold.
Absolutely.
And so it takes getting in the car and driving and willfully, deliberately engaging those leaders, making the extra effort, going the extra mile, and reaching out to them, and not just waiting for something just to happen generically, but to really put some sweat equity into building that relationship.
Absolutely. These when ethnic individuals make a decision to enter into a non-ethnic church or a church that is more diversely spread out, they're taking a risk by coming into that into that church. And so one of the things that they want to see is people who look like them at these events. So you're going to have those ethnic folks who are pioneers who will naturally come to these events because they want to be a part of that thing. Typically, those folks might be second or third generation folks. But it's really that relational piece that's going to get some of those first generation folks to release their students to come to youth camp, to come to our ministers retreat, to come to our district councils, right? And those pioneers, you who are pioneers or you who have not made yet the decision to be pioneers, can I just encourage you that just by your attendance at our district events, you open the doors so that other people who look just like you and share your values can also feel at home in the Georgia district.
Incredible. Thank you for saying that. So as a district youth director, when I took over in 2011, I had grown up in Georgia. I attended our camps. I was a part of everything. But it dawned on me as I was looking out at one of our youth camps. It was one of the first few weeks as a district youth director. I looked out over the attendees there, and it was almost exclusively Anglo. And because being raised in the community that I was raised in, thoughts like that don't come naturally.
Sure.
It has to be deliberate. And so when I saw that, I really felt like the Lord saying to me, the only way it's going to change is if you take deliberate steps. And so as a district youth director, I started scholarshiping to camp ethnically diverse congregations of young people.
That's good.
And because I knew that they struggled financially to make it there. And so what inroads can I make? And so I just got on the phone because I understand this. There is a kingdom economy at work. Mm-hmm. And it may cost me some dollars to do that. Mm-hmm. But the kingdom equity that I'm building will come back in spades. Yeah. Okay, it'll be exponential. Yeah. And so I began scholarshiping some of our diverse congregations. And guess what? The makeup of our summer camps now is entirely different than when I took over in 2011. Yeah. Now, because of it took deliberate steps. We also elevated female leadership.
That's great.
Because at one point it was just a bunch of guys running everything, and it's like, wait a minute, I'm the father of daughters.
Yeah.
Okay, so if I don't begin making an opportunity available for diverse leadership, then it's never going to start.
Absolutely.
And so we began to do that. And so fast forward all these years, later, I go to our youth camps now, led by Johnny Mendoza, Puerto Rican, district youth director.
Yep.
And we have an ethnically diverse
5 camps this year too.
Yeah, can you believe
incredible.
that? So I remember when we were praying, to break camp records, and Johnny's just come in and just crushed it. And so we had to add an extra week of camp because, and listen, I'll tell you, the thing that we do on a district level that is the most enduring, and what I mean is long after we're gone,
Yeah.
the most enduring thing we do as a district is our summer camping program. And you'll see that's why we invest a lot of resources into it.
Yeah.
I got saved at a kids camp. I got called into ministry at a youth camp. And I'm just one of thousands who have had those profound experiences. And we want to make them available for everyone.
That's good.
And so thank you for saying that about, be deliberate in bringing them. But on our side, we also need to be very deliberate in making room for that as well.
And even just, giving a call to those, those churches. Sometimes they want that connection piece with our district and our district leadership, but because the finances in their congregation might not allow, right? The ethnic communities are deeply invested into honor. And so if I'm going to bring you as district superintendent into our congregation, we want to make sure that you are thoroughly blessed and taken care of. And
I have seen that.
If we can't do that, then we won't have you in. And that might be years that might go by without any district representative entering into these churches. And it's not because the congregation or the pastor might not want to see that happen. It's because they don't feel like they have enough to be able to adequately honor that district leader coming in.
I've never thought about that. Tom, you just blew me away with that, because that never occurred to me as a leader as to why. I guess we are guilty of just making assumptions. It's like maybe they don't want that. But I could say this, that is enlightening to me. It's also very liberating to know, okay, it's a high honor culture.
Yes.
And so there are some road bumps, some speed bumps in them being able to execute that. So therefore they don't express an invitation to come. That's actually very liberating for me.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, having been part of the New Jersey district, which is just a very diverse district, you'd be surprised, again, like you shared, the level of diversity that exists here in Georgia. Just in the East Atlanta section alone, we have French-speaking congregations. There are Burmese congregations. There are Romanian congregations. There are Jamaican congregations.
Wow.
There are primarily African-American congregations. And so there's a lot of these different bodies that exist within our state. Even, if we get into our college campuses, the level of diversity, people are coming in to Georgia from all across the world to be able to train their students and get their students in education. So we have the ability to reach the world from Georgia.
Wow. When you and I went to lunch that day up there, and we were sitting there, and you began to converse with the staff in Spanish, it dawned on me, you have a unique inroad to minister in such a way that I cannot, because you just your immediate connection with just your ability to speak another language, but it's so beautiful to see God use that, because we do have people that, like you just said, Atlanta is one of the most diverse communities in America.
Yes.
We bring a large influx of individuals from other places to come, so we have a mission field right in front of us.
Absolutely.
That's incredible.
Can't wait to reach it.
Amen. May the Lord bring that to fruition.
Amen.
And so having that representation and being cognizant of some of the challenges. And you even mentioned to me about the challenges of the second and third generation,
Yeah.
maybe living in multiple worlds.
Yeah.
And that was really compelling to me. Can you kind of unpack that a little
Yeah,
bit?
so there are different experiences that kind of take place in between the first and second generation. That first generation holds values largely from their home country and holds dear to their nation's culture and their language. And in so many ways, that second generation is also invested into with that culture,
Okay.
with those values, with that language, but now they're here in the States.
Yes.
And they're trying to fit in with the culture that exists here in the States. So in so many ways, even for me as a Puerto Rican, I will go to Puerto Rico, and over there I am a gringo, right? In America.
Are you kidding?
Right. So for them, and so I don't fit in there entirely, despite being 100% Puerto Rican, being able to speak the language in the same way that they speak the language. And sometimes you don't entirely fit in here within American culture either. So you're kind of caught between these two worlds. So you kind of have this third culture, so to speak, that exists, because you cannot fully empathize with the lived experience of your family members who immigrated to the United States from their country of origin, and you can't fully identify with the majority culture either. So you're feeling like you're living within these two worlds, so to speak.
And this constant tension
Yeah.
and this constant battle between the two has to create an incredible amount of anxiety.
Yeah, yeah. And it just doesn't create tension in the person. It can create tension in a church too.
Wow.
Because now you have the pastor who is a first generation and older members of the congregation who are first generation to that ethnic background. And then you have these young kids that are coming up,
Right.
that kind of want to switch things up and change things around because it doesn't kind of fit. Now maybe we have some second or third generation who maybe don't speak the language anymore. And now we have to be bilingual as a congregation. So
Right.
it really changes congregational dynamics substantially as a church. It really is. It's a great opportunity for those who are in that third culture, particularly those who feel called to ministry, to get involved with some of our opportunities here
Yes.
at the district, like
Yes.
our Called initiative for
Yes.
students who are called into ministry, because it helps give them a way forward to be able to understand how to minister in their context that is different from perhaps one that their
Yes.
families had.
Wow.
Right? Because it's different to minister in communities here in the U.S. than it is to minister in communities in Nigeria or Sierra Leone or El Salvador or India, right? It's substantially different. And so we do have that culture deeply embedded in us.
Yes.
But we also are deeply American as well and committed to American values. So we're kind of somewhere in the middle.
Well, and that is enlightening to me. So when you know someone's story and you know the battles that they are facing, it really allows you to minister in a profound way. And so knowing that you've got this sort of third culture,
Yeah.
kind of this tension that young people in the second, third, generations or further are walking in, and you see this constant battle that they are facing. You can sort of lower our defenses and really embrace the fact that these young people are fighting a battle.
Yeah.
And it's not just one that we see on the outside, it's an internal battle and the battle that the church is facing as well.
Yeah.
And so thank you for that. That is enlightening for me to know that you've got that sort of third culture going on and that constant tension. How do churches resolve that?
Now that's difficult.
Okay.
Right? I think you need to have a pastor and a leader who is willing to listen to the experience of that third generation. And I think you as the pastor and as a leader, as a minister in the congregation, need to be committed to your principles and biblical values and biblical morality. And you have to also understand, where is their flexibility? where have I attached cultural pieces to my doctrinal beliefs, and where's their flexibility in those cultural, that dogma, so to speak, that we can have flexibility in, and give those young people that space in that flexibility, to kind of be able to go in and hey, maybe have a service that is tailored to them and the things that they like to see, a youth service. And then, Pastor, as I shared before, you're going to receive a lot of support from the district when you send your students to camp, and they get to see that things are bigger than just their local church.
Yeah.
And they'll be ministered to adequately, and some of them will receive a call to ministry. And that's going to be absolutely vital, right? Because it will look different from the first to the third generation.
It will.
And our ethnic pastors need to know, one of the best things that you can do, Pastor, is to know how to pass the baton well.
Oh,
and so
come on.
You're going to have to know how to pass the baton well to that maybe second, to that third generation that maybe might think differently from you, but might be no less committed to the doctrine and the beliefs and the propagation of the gospel than you are. And so
can we take a couple of minutes there? Because I know we're reaching our time, but I want to kind of drill down on that, and then maybe, Tom, if it would be possible for us to come back with another episode to cover some of these things. But what you're talking about. So when I started out as a youth pastor, this was in 1991. I worked for an older pastor here in Macon, a wonderful man of God, but I was required to wear a tie to the office every day, and I was the youth pastor. Had to wear a tie. Also had to make hospital visits too, and go down and pray for people in the hospital, and not realizing he was actually doing me a favor by doing that, because I built instant credibility with the older members of the congregation because I was doing work of the pastor. It wasn't just youth ministry that I was doing, and he said, hey, you need to go do this, and I hated every minute of it, but looking back, I realized, thank you for doing that. But I had to wear a tie every day to the office, and I had that kind of drilled into me early on. One day it dawned on me that I'm not a hypocrite or a pagan if I don't wear a tie to the office. Those particular things that we adopted early on in the movement that were just a part of being the pastor, and you just assumed, I realized that I understood later on, because I try to avoid wearing a tie now at all costs. I have some in my closet, but I have a hate relationship with them.
Me too.
And so it dawned on me though, and what you're saying is with these pastors, hey, their walk may stylistically look different, but their love for Jesus, their commitment to Pentecostalism and Pentecostal doctrinal foundations is unquestionable.
Yes.
But they may have holes in their jeans.
Yeah. And let me just share this. It's not just that stylistically, Pastor, be open. And I know that this is hard in ethnic communities.
Okay.
Because the pastor is so highly regarded.
Yes.
But be open to questions, right? Sometimes our young people have questions.
Yes.
About, and that is key to passing the baton to the next generation as well. Being open to answer and sit with those young people, and sit with that second and third generation, and sit with their questions and answering their questions, because that is so key and crucial to you shepherding that second and third generation.
And you got to know how those generations think.
Absolutely.
And so the Z's, and the millennials and Z's and what they think entirely different than my Gen X thinking.
Sure.
Okay. Entirely different. But you've got to be aware of that to handle those questions. They're going to ask you some really tough questions.
Yeah.
And it's not a lack of respect towards authority.
Exactly.
Okay. So it's not born out of, I'm going to question you ad infinitum and be critical of you. It's, hey, I have a genuine need for understanding.
It is a wrestling with their faith.
Yes.
It is, and we all wrestle. We all wrestle.
And
with
if you guide that wrestling well,
Yeah,
you're going to have an ultra committed disciple of Jesus.
absolutely.
And so be open to that. I guess I'm echoing what you're saying, is that be open to those questions, because
100%.
if you steward that well, boy, the payoff on that on the other side is this ultra committed follower of Jesus who is going to serve and is going to be a leader in your congregation, and hopefully they'll go out and pastor their own congregations later if we can steward those moments well.
Oh yeah. We have a lot of called students in all throughout the state.
Yes.
And in our ethnic congregations, we can steward that well.
Yes.
I mean, we're going to see revival in this state.
You know, and I'm going to take, I know we're going a little bit long. You just mentioned that. I have a what I would call a holy optimism as far as a revival. And my prayer has been, Tom, and I say this to the Lord all the time, because I know that other districts and churches are praying for a nationwide revival. Sure. Okay, we all are. We want to see God move in our nation and in our churches specifically. But my prayer has been, why not Georgia?
Mm-hmm.
And I do believe we're living in the last days. Jesus is coming back.
Yeah.
And he's coming back soon. And I believe that before he does, there's going to be one last great outpouring.
I agree.
He desires that none perish. And so there's going to be one last great outpouring. And my prayer has been, let it start here.
Yeah.
Let it start here. Let it start in Georgia. Why not Georgia? Why not in our churches, with our pastors, to see a powerful move of the Holy Spirit unleashed with all the signs, wonders, and miracles accompanying? And I believe that. I with that holy optimism, I believe it's going to happen, and that it can start right here. We are on the cusp, I feel like, of a great outpouring of the Holy Spirit. And I want all of our churches to be a part of that.
Yes.
The Anglo churches, the diverse churches, the ethnic churches, all those. I want us all to be a part of that. So thank you for coming today. And what I'd like to do, because we have so many things we want to tackle topically, is to do a sort of a 2.0 of this conversation, and come back and tackle some more of these things.
Absolutely.
So,
looking forward to it.
Thank you for your faithfulness. Pastor, we're praying for you. We're praying for you. We're believing God for you personally, for your families, but also for your churches. And we want to continue this conversation on how we can better minister to our ethnic brothers and sisters and be a true reflection of heaven. So we're praying for you. We bless you. We'll see you next time.